Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for their patience as we got everything settled with IT. And we know IT is always wonderful when it works as we want it, and sometimes it doesn't. So I would like to officially open and start our May 13th, 2021 Bloomington Human Relations Commission meeting. It is now officially 4:41. And we'll remind everyone that we are live, and that means we're virtual. So I'm going to call the meeting to order by calling the roll of attendance. Commissioner Conam.
Present.
Commissioner Kennikar. Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Carey.
Commissioner Carey is present. I believe that she has not unmuted.
Okay, are you going to work with her, or her assistant? Someone will work with her to get her unmuted?
I have messaged.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Ajay.
Present.
And Commissioner Smith, present. Ms. Richards, do we have a quorum?
Yes, Chair, we do.
Thank you. We will proceed forth on the agenda as it is presented to us. Item number 2 on our agenda is the public comment. Ms. Richards, did we have anyone register?
We did not for this meeting.
Okay, thank you. We will continue moving on. Item number 3, approval of the meeting minutes from our April meeting. The minutes were sent out to us. I am going to trust that everyone had appropriate time to review the meeting minutes and ask for a motion to approve, or if there were things that you object to or feel that need to be adjusted, let me know.
Chair Smith, point of correction, those would be the March minutes, as we did not meet in April.
You are correct. We did not. Thank you for that adjustment. Anything else? And I read that and looked right over the date.
I'd like to move for the adoption of the minutes as presented.
I second it.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Ajay and Commissioner Conam. It has been properly moved and second that the March 11th, 2021 meeting minutes be approved with the correction. No, I said that, April. The minutes are correct as they are presented. So Commissioner Ajay, I will get this right. Commissioner Ajay and Commissioner Conam have properly approved and second the adoption of the meeting minutes from March 11, 2021. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Commissioner Carey. Commissioner Conam.
I approve.
Commissioner Ajay.
Aye.
And Commissioner McGinnis is present. No? Still technical difficulties? Commissioner Smith, yes. Ms. Richards?
Commissioner McGinnis seems to still be having technical difficulties. He just needs to unmute. He is present. And
Commissioner, okay,
are you, I'm going to get his vote now and I'll be sharing that with you all. One moment, please. Commissioner McGinnis identifies yes.
okay, thank you. Did you get the count, Ms. Richards?
Yes, motion approves.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Welcome to the conversation, Commissioner McGinnis.
Might I share a couple of points with you, Chair Smith, before we move on?
Yes,
Some other voting bodies that I'm affiliated with insist that if you are present, you have your,
must speak.
not only must you speak, but your video should be on so that we can be sure it's you who's actually speaking. That's the first thing. And
So I'm
secondly,
looking for,
I know, but the other piece is I don't want to give anyone ammunition to say we're conducting our meetings inappropriately when allegedly we have one commissioner who's available but cannot unmute. Well, two of them actually on the call who are available but cannot unmute. So do we technically have a quorum if there are two folks who are present but we haven't heard nor seen them?
You need to start and stop the video. It's right there, but
so I heard a voice.
Chair Smith, that is IT assisting Commissioner McGinnis with his technology now.
We're making progress.
And
it won't.
is Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner Conam. I see Mr. Hurt has joined us. Okay, thank you, Commissioner McGinnis. Can you unmute?
Yes,
Okay. Did you hear the motion for the approval of the minutes?
yes, I did.
And your vote is?
Yes,
Thank you, Commissioner McGinnis. And Commissioner Carey, are you able to hear?
Chair Smith, I am currently calling Commissioner Carey as we speak, as her assistant should be in the room with her.
We should have as a future agenda item some other technology options so that those who are differently abled are able to participate without relying on the technology that the abled rely upon.
Hello, Commissioner Carey, can you please unmute?
So Commissioner Jai, that was an ask that I had put forth, and I think Ms. Richards followed up on that and had
Yes.
identified a solution that was to ensure that Commissioner Carey could participate. But obviously, we're still experiencing some impacts.
Commission, if I may just make a point of clarification.
Yes,
The alternative was not, I apologize, I'm receiving feedback now. Okay, there's lots of fun times today. Can you all hear me? Is there still feedback? Again, I am not sure what's happening today. I apologize. Is that better? Okay, thank you, IT. We did have an alternative for Commissioner Carey. However, it turned out not to be a helpful one for her. And so the best outcome was to have a physical assistant in her room. And so I made contact with the facility, the rehabilitation facility, twice a week to confirm that she will have that assistant. And I did so today. And I believe that they did confirm that someone would be there to assist her, which is how she was able to call in today. However, the assistant is new, and I don't believe that they I understand the mute and unmute option. I've sent those directions again. And so this is unfortunate, but we will try again. And I will also follow up with Ms. or Commissioner Carey after this meeting to ensure that she was able to at least hear. And if she has any questions, I will share that back with the commission and follow up as soon as possible.
Thank you. So I'm going to park that conversation for a bit so that we can get back to the meeting minutes approval. Everyone that we can hear and or see has voted, correct? And
Yes.
what does that count, Ms. Richards? Do we have a consensus?
Yes, we do, Chair.
Okay, so I do want to get back to the topic of when will a person actually be considered present and have the ability to be able to be participate in voting. Let's move that to the end of the agenda so we can continue moving forth with agenda item number 4, and that is to hear our guest speaker, Dr. Doris Houston, on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I will turn it over to you, Dr. Houston.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Smith. I truly appreciate the opportunity to visit and share some updates about Illinois State University, what we've been doing to promote and support diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism on our campus, and also to tell you a little bit about my position. This is an inaugural position that was created by President Larry Dietz in July of 2020. So I'll be approaching the end of the first year next month. So I do have a presentation. If you don't mind, I'll share that.
Please.
Okay. Can everyone see the
Yes.
I can
can.
see it.
Okay, great. I would ask if I could, Ms. Richards, to perhaps help me with, I know that I'm allotted a 20 minutes for the presentation and then time for questions and answers. So perhaps you can give me a warning bell or a signal when I'm approaching the end of that time.
Will do.
Just a little bit about me. I am a Chicagoan, born and raised on the south side of Chicago. And I've actually since then been downstate for 25 plus years. I attended the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and received my undergraduate degree in social work. And then later, after working in the human services field, primarily for the Department of Children and Family Services, I also did serve at one point for the Illinois Department of Human Rights, but later returned as a non-traditional student to the University of Illinois for a master's and doctoral program in human development and family studies. I was pleased to be able to join the faculty at Illinois State University in 2005. So a little bit over 15 years that I've been at Illinois State University. And in my faculty role, my primary research area has been racial equity in the human services, primarily foster care and adoption. So I continue that work. And then also I expanded to, of course, look at access to higher education among underrepresented students. The courses that I have taught have been numerous and all over the board, but my primary areas of teaching have been working with diverse populations and also social welfare policy. In 2017, I had the opportunity to chair Illinois State University's Campus Climate Task Force Steering Committee. And that task force, you'll see as I present, really laid the groundwork for where the university has moved in the past several years in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Before my current position, I served as a 2-year appointment as interim director for the School of Social Work. And then, as I mentioned, my current position that I'm pleased to hold as an inaugural position was created by President Larry Dietz. So the role of Assistant to the President for Diversity and Inclusion is to advance a shared vision of inclusive excellence for Illinois State University. I'll stop there and pause on the term inclusive excellence, because when we think of education, particularly in higher ed, but really all across the board, it's important that we realize and understand that we're not offering our students a well-rounded educational experience if it does not include diverse voices, diverse experiences, and the expertise of diverse scholars, teachers, etc. So I really like to use the term inclusive excellence because it really does shine the light on the fact that no matter what the discipline is, we have to include diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's what the campus is working toward. As you, I'm sure, know, as with any institution, it is a process, but I'm pleased to have a role in supporting our university in advancing that goal. So again, my role is really at the cabinet level to facilitate and evaluate the change that Illinois State University is advancing towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. You'll see that I've added the A because that's something that we are definitely moving toward and supportive of, and that A standing for anti-racism. So a big part of my role this year has been to build relationships, to enhance current relationships, and listen. We can't really promote diversity and inclusion without building those relationships and partnerships. So again, this is why I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Your commission is certainly plays an integral role in this community in terms of promoting cultural understanding, cultural awareness, and diversity and inclusion. So I look forward to this being the first of many opportunities to engage with you. My work does not stand alone. At this point, I like to joke that I'm a party of one. So I understood that when I accepted the position, but I really, my work really expands across the university. So I work with senior administrators, faculty, staff, students to ensure that DEIA is embedded within our university's mission, our vision, and our strategies, be those teaching strategies, hiring strategies, etc. And also examining where we need to review and revise our policies and procedures to be able to ensure that we're adequately serving underserved groups and examining those barriers. Inclusive excellence, again, in teaching and research is very important. And I do have to say, I've been pleased as I've met with so many people on our campus that people really do want to move in this direction. I've had so many individuals, faculty members, administrators reach out to me wanting support, technical assistance, and guidance in their work. One of the things, because this is a new position and because we've largely worked on in local pockets, if you will, we've not had someone at the university level to advance our goals of diversity, equity, inclusion. I found that we've had the need to develop an infrastructure and capacity building for equity, diversity, and inclusion. So what do we mean by that? For one, having a common language and definitions. When we say diversity, how is that defined? How are we defining equity? How are we defining inclusion? So I had people reach out to me and say, hey, what's the university's definitions for these terms? Because we have department chairs that are wanting to build these this terminology into some of the performance measures for faculty, or look at how we're admitting students and how those terms are being defined. So part of the work that we did, which it seems very basic, but up until now, we really did not have those defined terms. And so we have, and I'll share a website with you, but we have moved forward with some definitions that I'm sure will evolve as time goes by. Also, communication, how we communicate our progress. So having dialogue such as this with our community partners and stakeholders, as well as internal dialogues, but also we need to ensure that we're keeping the information about our work transparent, and we're providing that information in multiple formats. Another thing that we've worked on, again, that is part of this capacity building, is looking at how the university represents itself visually. So are we seeing the representation of diversity in our brochures, our mailings, our website? And are those representations accurate? Are they respectful? Are they really demonstrating the strength and the contributions of our diverse campus community? Also, data. Data is important to be able to show where we are and what we've accomplished. So establishing some systems so that we are able to report, to review our progress and report out our progress. And then certainly best practice guidelines. This year, there's been an explosion of in-services, webinars that are addressing some of the issues that we're facing as a society around social unrest, racism, ableism, homophobia across the board. So there are a number of best practice guidelines that have been developed nationally as well as through specific organizations. So ensuring that we're up to date on those guidelines and then can share them with our constituents. And as I mentioned, those opportunities for dialogue, really examining our hiring practices. And I'll add to that, in addition to hiring, but our contracting. So those are some areas that we definitely are being intentional about examining and moving forward with. And then, of course, promoting community partnerships. So I do hope, and I'd love to hear your ideas on additional ways that we might partner. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but this is just a sampling of the groups that I have engaged with this year, be that on some joint efforts, be that on consulting, as we have a number of units that are looking to improve their efforts, what they're doing, developing advisory boards. You'll see the university police on here. The police chief's advisory board was recently convened. So I have been able to be a part of that advisory board. And also there's an external audit of the campus police that is currently underway. I've done quite a bit with our athletics department, a number of other units on campus. And then as you can see on the right-hand side, really, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, but certainly our community groups such as the NAACP, Not in Our Town. I'm thankful and was very honored to have the opportunity to serve as one of your virtual keynotes for the MLK celebration. And I've had the opportunity to have some dialogues with my counterparts at Illinois Wesleyan and Heartland. So I do look forward to expanding those efforts as well. I think I've touched on some of this, but I can't tell you how much it was like a light bulb moment for me to see how important it is that we have certain infrastructure in place. As of October of 2020, we've started putting out by email, and we may even look at some additional media options next year, but we now put out bi-weekly updates on our diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism improvements, advancements. So be those policies, be those admission data, new programs, new opportunities, we're providing those updates on a consistent basis. We also developed a social media response team. As you know, it's a very painful thing to, because of social media, we have people that use it for harmful means. So when we receive reports, and we actually have monitors who monitor the campus media, we put together a team so we have a clear idea of who should respond if there is a complaint, if there is a report of hate speech. And if there is a report, is that directed at a student, a faculty member, a campus, or a community member? So we have some protocols now in place for that. Also, we convened a demonstration support team. This is primarily for our students who are engaged in activism and they choose to demonstrate on our campus. And the role of that support team is to communicate with our student groups to ensure their safety, particularly if they are wanting to demonstrate not only on campus, but across the community, just making sure they are informed and aware of how to keep themselves safe. A website review team, again, going with that visual representation. So my office is called on now to review images that the university puts out to promote inclusiveness and to ensure that we are capturing the experiences of our diverse campus. And similarly with articles, we're now reviewing selected articles to be able to give feedback on that, on those as well, with the lens of equity and inclusion. There are a number of our departments that have wanted to put out social justice statements and statements of support in the wake of the racial unrest and the number of killings that have occurred this year that have been very disturbing. So we've had a number of departments that have wanted to reach out and have called on my office for guidance, for feedback to those statements. And then this year we'll be producing our first annual DEI report to the campus and the community at large. So we are continuing to collect information for that report, and it will be out probably late summer, early fall. Working hand in hand, I'd say, alongside me is an amazing group of colleagues from the President's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Council. So there are approximately 20 members on that council that are made up of our members of our leaders of our diverse affinity groups and interdisciplinary programs, such as African American Studies, Latin American Latino Studies, Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, etc. So these are really individuals who are well-versed and have expertise in equity and inclusion. And this council really does serve as that body that advises the president as well as our campus leadership. So as of last year, actually, the council now has its own session with any executive leaders that are being hired, or candidates, I should say, that the university is hiring. So we have our own interview time with those individuals to be able to provide feedback. This spring, the council has, and they're completing actually, interviews with our student registered organizations. These are our organizations, again, primarily of diverse affinity groups for our students to learn about, hear about their experiences at Illinois State University. What's going well for them? Do they feel included? Do they feel embraced? And what we can do better. I think I mentioned that the council has compiled some beginning definitions, and I'm sure those will expand. We get asked every day for additional terms for us to be able to define, so we'll work on those as well. And we've interviewed and are currently conducting dialogues with diverse faculty members, as I noted earlier. And again, the goal being to identify what we're doing well, where there are opportunities, and where we're gaps, where we're not meeting the mark, and how we can move forward. So it is our hope, we are in the midst of a change in presidential leadership, but it is our hope to move forward in the fall with putting together or compiling a campus-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. So we'd like to start that process under the new presidential leadership. So that will be certainly one of the things that will be on our agenda for our meeting with the incoming president. 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, there is a campus-wide comprehensive plan that we were able to compile that was dated March of 2021. And it's a fairly comprehensive plan that covers essentially our campus plan, but also updates on where we are with meeting the needs and demands of our students and our faculty. This plan came out of one of our student groups called Anti-Black ISU. And this group really put some demands on us to ensure that we are addressing their needs, our diverse student needs. So we compiled a report to essentially give updates with regard to those demands. And that report is available on our website, the website for our Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Council. I did want to share a little bit of information about where we are in terms of our student enrollment and diversity. And this year, I have to say, I was concerned initially. I think we all were because of the pandemic. But if you can see on the right-hand column where we are just in terms of maintaining a strong academic standing, our freshman class had an average GPA of 3.5. And 31% of our entering freshman class were students from underrepresented groups. That is really something that we want to see continue and want to provide that support. Overall, students on our campus from underrepresented groups are at 27% of our total student population. Of course, in line with bringing students to our campus, we want to make sure that they remain here. And so here's some statistics on our student retention. So you can see that from 2019 to 2020, we went from 78.6% to an 84.2% retention rate for students from first time in college. I don't have all the ethnicities here, and we do have that information available upon request, but for the overall retention of African American students, we went from a disappointing low of 66.8% in 2019 to 80.2% in 2020. There is certainly a realization that some of the changes and adjustments that were made due to COVID probably impacted these numbers, but I've really been working with my colleagues on our campus to see how we can keep some of the policies in place that have really supported the retention of our underrepresented students. So the same with the retention of Hispanic students that went from a low of 67, a little over 67% to close to 80% in 2020. When we break those numbers down further though, you'll see that we've got work to do for male students, from Black male students and Hispanic students. As you can see, the rates are lower than what we would see for our overall students. However, again, fairly large increases in those retention rates. Again, if you have additional information on data, I didn't want to have this presentation be too heavy on data, but we do have other more detailed data upon request. Okay, I'll skip over this. Thank you, Nikki. But I guess if I can take 1 minute just to feature, it's important as we think about retention and admission that we promote students being able to thrive. And our honors program is certainly an area where our students have the opportunity to get an enhanced learning experience. They're specialists that come in, they get to work on individualized projects. And as you can see from 2013, when we had 5.2% of our students in honors were students of color, we're now at 22% in 2019. This doesn't happen magically. It comes because of intentional efforts, recruitment, curricula that's where students can see themselves. So we're definitely looking at continuing that. I'll pass through these areas, but just wanted to note there's a number of opportunities, training opportunities for faculty and staff that centers around anti-racism, anti-bias. So there are more than enough opportunities in-house, as well as external training for our faculty and staff. Career center initiatives for students from underrepresented groups. We are pleased to have a number of programs that support career development, our Diversity Expo and Success Looks Like Me. International events as well. I'll have to skip over this part, and I'm happy to share that, but I think I've actually touched on these things, but just wanted to point out that our student movements such as Anti-Black ISU, as our student athletes and others, really have jump-started some of this work. And it's not always easy to be able to look at those warts, but they certainly have to be examined. And we view our students' activism as a call to action. We have our Multicultural Center that is in the process of opening. The date scheduled is for July of 2021. So if you pass down Main Street, you'll see the construction work going on there. And then finally, on the horizon, what I'm looking towards for next year is being able to have more data available internally and to the public on where we are with our diversity and equity inclusion advancements. A campus-wide strategic plan. Also, we'll be putting together a proposal for a more expanded DEI office. There are a number of departmental level diversity and inclusion councils. We're now at 24, so I'll be doing some training and professional development for those groups. And then I'll be working with HR and our Office of Equal Opportunity, Employment and Access for some initiatives on inclusive hiring. We were hoping to have a required diversity course that would pass our academic senate this spring. However, it didn't happen. So many of us are disappointed by that. This was a proposal that had been in the works since 2017, but it is definitely on the top of the list for fall. And then I'll be proposing, since our last campus climate task force review was done in 2016, I'll be proposing to our new president that we conduct an updated external review on our campus climate. So that is some of the information that I wanted to share, and I'd love to hear from you in terms of your thoughts, recommendations, or questions.
Thank you, Dr. Houston. Thank you, thank you. The information you shared was just phenomenal, insightful, extremely valuable in so many ways. You've been busy. You have been
for
busy.
a party of one.
One, yes.
For a party
have
of
been
one,
busy.
I'm pleased to have had the opportunity to work in a number of arenas here with my colleagues, but it certainly is definitely a team effort.
And as we like to say, it's not about the output, it's about the outcomes. And you have produced some outcomes. So I am not going to
Chair Smith, may I?
hog the time here. Yes.
Chair Smith, I just wanted to know if you would like everyone to turn their cameras back on.
Yes, please. Thank you, Ms. Richards. I was assuming that had occurred. See, I was so anxious to get into the conversation. Commissioners, I am going to open it up to you first to ask any questions before I consume any time.
If I might, Chair Smith.
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Ajay.
Dr. Houston, thank you very much. I'm really glad that you took the time to come in front of us and explain what you're doing, how you're doing, and why you're doing it. For just under 15 years, I taught political science at ISU, and I'm also a Redbird, so I have a lot of connection to the university. I've interacted with a number of students on ISU's campus over these years and have been a student myself. And while I appreciate and applaud all that you have shared with us, one thing that was glaringly absent for me was a sense of accountability for those on campus who engage in practices like tokenism, microaggression, and how we're going to respond to the issues of the lack of representation. Now, you did talk about that last one, about more diverse hiring. But here's what I hear from students, or I heard from students. I don't teach anymore. I'm in the class, and when there's a Black issue, they call on me because I'm the only Black student. So, of course, I can speak for all my Black colleagues. And when they go and talk to the chair about this, it's like, oh, you're too sensitive. Right? Well, how do we hold those professors accountable? I understand we need to train them and get them to understand what they're doing. But when they make the mistake, how do we hold them accountable? That's question one. The microaggressions. Oh, your hair is so pretty. Don't touch my body. What's wrong with you? Right? But again, how do we respond to professors who take these liberties? And okay, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't know any better. And we have to teach them to do better. But when they cross that line, students are visibly upset, emotionally distraught at this tokenism and microaggression piece. And what they turn around and say, but look, I complain and nothing happens. So I would encourage you to find some way to show the students that updates are critical. These approaches of training and so on are great, but the action, when there's violation of trust, how do we address those? And how do we address that in a visible way that students can hang their hat on and say, aha, ISU really means what they say. And the last thing I'll say is when we talk about diversity and inclusion, one of the things that's really important is language. And as a personal approach, I never use freshmen anymore because it's gender specific. I'm always talking about first year students. So this is just my little token of advice to you. But all that I've said, I always want to make things better, and I really think you're on the right track. And I offer these suggestions to you in the spirit of love and in the spirit of everybody getting to a place where we can all say we have a just, diverse, inclusive, and anti-racist community on campus. So thank you.
And if I can respond, and I so appreciate your comments and recommendations, Commissioner. I will be the first to say that in spite of these efforts and advancements that we have a long way to go. Had I had more time, I would have also shared some data on our faculty hires, which are not good. And I have made it very clear that that is an area that we absolutely must address and prioritize in terms of diversity among our faculty, not just hiring, but retention. With regard to microaggressions, there has been a very intentional campaign to train faculty as a first step, because we all know that training, going to a couple hours here or there is not the answer, but it is a part, and it can be a part of a broader effort that would include coaching, that would include accountability. So we did have more than 850 faculty members participate in microaggressions training over the past year. So the goal now, there's actually a new associate vice president for academic planning, who is now in the role to develop and review and evaluate the effectiveness of those professional development opportunities. I'm starting to see that there are some individual departments that are actually building into faculty evaluations and accountability, how they are, if they are able to demonstrate that they are adequately teaching and serving diverse students. So we'll be working with them to support those efforts and expand those efforts.
Chair Smith, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm trying to turn my camera back on. Please go ahead, Ms. Richards.
Thank you. Dr. Houston, you mentioned that you would be advocating for the policies and procedures that are in place that are currently helping to increase retention amongst Black and Hispanic students to remain. Do you have a moment to share with us what some of those policies and procedures are that have been helpful in helping to retain Black and Hispanic students?
Sure, and actually the Provost's office is doing some research currently to see if we can tease apart which of those policy changes have made the biggest difference. But certainly from what I'm learning in the areas of finances, we had a fairly low dollar amount that if a student had an outstanding bill of even $200, they would be prevented from registering for classes for the following semester. So those amounts have, during COVID, those limits were increased to, I know, over $1,000. And as a result of that, so if a student had an outstanding bill and they needed to negotiate, or even there's been additional assistance through the CARES grants to help students if they were struggling financially. But that opened the door for students to not have to walk away from registering because of a fairly, I mean, I'm saying low, but certainly if $200 is not low if you don't have it, but that's one example. Also, just in terms of how we're some of the courses where there's high rates of students that are receiving a D or an F or a withdrawal. There were some efforts made this year to have a pass or no pass option for students. Again, I'm not sure if that's something that we'll maintain, but there are a number of areas. Also, the provost's office is really wanting to hone in on those classes where there are higher rates of students receiving a D, an F, or withdrawal, to look at what kinds of additional supports, resources, and faculty development. Because if a student is not mastering content, it's not just a reflection of the students, it's a reflection of us and how we're teaching and how we're serving our students. So there are a number of policies and also programs that are being put in place through our student success program that is continuing to emerge, but to be able to look at how we can be more focused in our efforts to be the best that we can be in serving our students. So those are some examples.
Thank you so very much.
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis or Commissioner
Yeah,
Cunningham, do you have, am I on mute again?
I'm sorry, Commissioner McGinnis.
Okay.
You're muted, Commissioner McGinnis.
You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Oh,
Commissioner
good.
McGinnis.
Very good. I was an administrator at ISU for several years, and one of the key elements is to hire faculty, minority faculty, and it was always a problem. Are you able to get input into the hiring process? And has the number of minority faculty changed at all in the last couple of years?
Again, I'll be the first to tell you, sadly, the answer is no. We've lost faculty, and then faculty from underrepresented groups. And due to COVID, there was a hiring freeze. So we're normally, if there was if we lost faculty, there'd be opportunities to hire more. But without that, I'll be honest with you, no, we are nowhere near where we can and should be with hiring. There are some proposals to use a model that's called cluster hiring, so that we may have enough, say, an agreement to hire 3 or 4 or 5 faculty that may have some related overlapping research areas or teaching, but perhaps in different departments. So maybe, for example, social work and criminal justice and sociology, but they may have some commonalities in their areas of research. And so there research that shows that when faculty can be hired where there's more of a critical mass, if you will, or a group that can be brought in together, it really does help with the social support, their research agendas, et cetera. So my understanding is the provost for next year, hopefully with some, he'll be able to do some more hiring that will be able to address those issues. But that's one of a number of things. It certainly doesn't address things like implicit bias potentially, or the way we're reviewing how we consider someone to be qualified and reviewing that. So our human resources office is implementing, this will be the first year where we're implementing what's called a search advocacy program. So we'll have a number of people on our campus to go through a training to be able to effectively serve and advise on search committees with a lens of equity. Everything from how a description of a position is developed, what the qualifications for a position is, how they're evaluated, if there are, what kind of outreach is being done to recruit people for positions. And again, we can't dismiss the importance of relationships. So we have to, it's not enough just to put an ad in a paper. You know, we have to have relationships with groups. There are so many diverse groups of professionals, professional organizations that we can and should be able to draw on if we're having a search, and even invite people, scholars from different areas to come in and present their work. They can become familiar with Illinois State and vice versa. So I'm looking forward to us moving in that area. I do have to say we're further along in our efforts with students than we are with our faculty and staff.
But there's a relationship between the minority faculty and the retention of minority students, I would
Yeah.
suspect. And so it's always a problem if a minority student doesn't see anybody that that he can relate to or she can relate to,
Right.
or see as an example. I'm really impressed with the work that you've been doing, though. I think it's really great. ISU really needed that types of programs and leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McGinnis. Commissioner Conam,
Yeah,
did
from
you
my
have?
end, yeah, from my end, that's a really lot of great information for me and a great learning opportunity, as I was here directly on a work visa. So knowing that there are still like those gaps and the numbers, you have a lot of relevant data also to support that. So that is really good. So the numbers are still low even now, like throws a lot of insight into it, and there is a lot of work need to be done, and training, at least if not anything, it is the first step to start with the change is what I believe. So yeah, that's a lot of work that you have put into. Thank you for that.
Thank you. And again, I welcome your recommendations. If you have ideas, of course, beyond today, please send my way.
Any other comments or questions for Dr. Houston? I have two quick ones. Dr. Houston, you mentioned the annual DEI report being produced. I think you said maybe later this summer or maybe early fall.
Yes.
Will it be made available to the public, or how will it be distributed?
Absolutely. Again, I think that's part of the infrastructure. We certainly will have it available and posted on campus and send out by email, but I'm actually developing an external contact so that when we have reports such as that, I can send out. I did send Ms. Richards a previous update from our students from Anti-Black ISU, and I believe I sent you I sent the comprehensive report also. Did you receive that for distribution? So if you have other thoughts on how we can distribute the information more widely, I'd love to have those recommendations, but at this point, I'll be sending them out to contacts and groups that have been made aware of outside of the university.
Okay. Then when you started this position, this inaugural position, and looking forward with this goal, are you pretty pleased at the progress that you've made? Are you extremely happy with all that you've accomplished?
Oh, that's a great question. I have to say I am. I will say, as we all know, there's just in our society this year, between COVID, the election, the racial strife, and just where we are as a nation in terms of racial healing and reconciliation, I feel like I had initially naively thought I could do a bit more of the long-term planning but certainly there was a need. When issues come up, they have to be addressed right away. So there was much more, if I would say, short-term reactions or responses to various issues that I had to take leadership of, and happy to do that. So it did, for example, our strategic plan for the that would have been something that I wanted to make headway on this spring, but it'll have to carry over to the fall.
Okay. And then one quick last question. I want to dovetail back or circle back to comments that Commissioner Ajay mentioned about the tokenism, the microaggression, and accountability, but specifically to the tokenism and the microaggression, some of the things that the students would make comments about or feel that wasn't being addressed. Who would they have taken that to? Was there any body, any council, any committee? Who was addressing those issues?
The Dean of Students normally would address those things. There is a response team, inclusive community response team, ICRT, Dean John Davenport.
Okay.
Excuse me, in partnership with Mr. Jeff Lang, who is our OEOA director. They have put together a response team, but also, frankly, any head of a department chair should be equipped to address those issues as well. And that's, again, one of the areas that I see in my role, supporting the development and accountability of
That's the part.
leadership.
Yeah, okay. That's the part I was looking for, the accountability on those roles. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Houston. Really, really appreciate your time being with us this evening. Appreciate your patience as we work through the IT issues. I'd like to ask the commissioners if there is interest in inviting Dr. Houston back at some time in the future, maybe later in the year, to get updates, the information that she is working on and the engagement that she has going on and the partnerships that she's building in the community, I personally think would be very valuable to us and what we are positioning to do. So I'm going to open it up to the commission next real quickly so that we can have a quick conversation.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely a good thought. And we can also see the additional progress that has been made and any new challenges that are encountered.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Conam.
Do so. And if you have particular kinds of information that you need, please just email me or call, and I'll be happy to provide any information and secure that information for you.
Thank you. I think I have a direct line to you.
Thank
you.
So.
Thank you, Dr. Houston, and enjoy the balance of your evening.
Okay,
On
thank
behalf of
you.
the Bloomington Human Relations Commission, we are so grateful for the information you shared. Bye-bye.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Okay. I'm not sure, did Commissioner Jones join us? Ms. Richards?
He did not, Chair Smith.
Okay. Okay, so we will move forward to agenda item 4B, which is the contract compliance update. Mr. Hurt, we thank you for being so patient as well and waiting. Good to see you.
It's good to see all of you. Yeah, it was a very interesting presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I've got a list of takeaways from it too.
That was your space as well, huh?
Yeah, definitely. And I keep thinking every time I hear of a new position for diversity, equity, and inclusion, I keep thinking, you know, somebody had to die for all of this to come about, which is sad commentary on where we are as a people here. Do you want me to go ahead and start, or we're
Yes,
doing-
please.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All righty. Update on the contract compliance program that we are trying to institute as part of our ordinance. Commissioner Ajayi, Commissioner Smith drove this process, which was way overdue in terms of the way the city of Bloomington has been handling procurement and contracts, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. When last I met with Commissioner Ajayi and Commissioner Smith, we set a timeline of late spring when we would be finished with not only the writing of the contract compliance agreement, but also shopping it around, if you will, to stakeholders in the community, particularly the unions, major contractors, and also our community partners who may have individuals or a program in their agency that would train young men and young women to be workers on these city-funded construction projects. Nikki and I worked on contacting the unions back in March. Nikki made an initial phone call. I followed up with a letter to all of the labor groups in the area who traditionally work on our city-funded construction projects. We only had one response from the union. What we had asked them to do was to supply us with a list of minority and female contractors who were members of their particular union. The union that responded, I think, was the laborers, I forget the local, but what they indicated was they had no one in their union who was either minority or female. They told me that they had been trying over the years to increase the numbers in terms of females and minorities. And from my understanding, that seems to be the line of most of, well, I'm not going to say most of, but a lot of the unions in town, that they are having problems diversifying their ranks, which is almost kind of funny when you consider they've worked so hard for so many years to keep these individuals out. But now they can't get them in order to fulfill the participation goal requirement of many of the contracts that they get from the state and the federal government. But anyway, that was our one response from the union. I sent an email out to all of our major contractors that the city generally uses. Basically outlined the program, the ordinance amendment that we're going for. Got no response from any of them, and I didn't expect to. And the reason why I really didn't expect it is because they are so used to the requirements for the state and federal projects that they work on. And our proposed amendment is very similar. So I didn't really get much, I really didn't bank on hearing much from them in the first place. So that really is not problematic, but we have fulfilled our obligation in terms of letting the major stakeholders know what we plan on doing with this amendment. The next steps are to, I will write up an ordinance amendment submitted to the city clerk's office. It will go into the city clerk's minute track software, which routes it to all of the departments that need to sign off on it. Once that has been routed, it becomes a council memo, and it goes on the agenda at the next council meeting. Any questions? Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Hurt, for your usual diligence on these matters. Let me express surprise at the lack of response from the unions, and I'll be following up on that on my own to reach out to my contacts and see what the deal was. I'm very surprised about the lack of response from major contractors, but you've told us why you're not surprised, and we'll leave that alone. My only real question is, what is the timeline for this process to go from where you are now to get this on the council's agenda?
I can submit this tomorrow and it'll start its process. If everyone is in town, and I think they all are, it should be routed by sometime next week. And whatever the next council meeting is, it'll go on the agenda for that. As long as we get it there in time for the next council meeting.
So within a month of the outset, would we say? Within a month?
Oh, God, yeah, yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, I'm excited about this one. There was some, I had a, excuse me. I had wondered in myself whether or not this should just be an SOP for the procurement department. But in order that it has legs that last, it really does need to be an amendment to the ordinance. And that is exactly the way it is placed in other municipalities. So I don't see that Bloomington should be any different.
What concerns me about the union piece, I mean, I've spoken to some union reps, and they have expressed to me the fact that there are not enough minority workers to go around. They've also expressed that the issue, there's a lot of training opportunities, but we have so many systemic issues. For example, if the trainings occur in 3 different counties and you have to find your own way to get to these different trainings and you don't have a car, you're not going to get there, which means you don't get trained, which means you can't get the job. So hopefully what we're doing will be the first step in a wider ranging discussion on how to address these systemic inequalities. Will the unions now be willing to invest in a van, for example, that will go point to point and pick people up and take them to the training, in addition to what they already do? So I think this is a really important initiative, and I'm really happy that city staff is taking it so seriously, and that we're at the point we're at. So again, thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you. And there's also the issue too, Commissioner Jai, of once these females and minorities do get accepted into the union and into these training programs, there needs to be some accountability to the way they're treated once they get there. That is going to speak forever to retention. And I speak from a personal vantage point. My son has recently attached himself to a union here in town. Going through the training, he tells me about the people who attend these trainings. He tells me about the microaggression. You really speak well for a Black guy. Or they tell racist jokes, or they use the N-word with impunity. And people who are in power or in authority at these places, they witness all of this and nothing, and it's never addressed. Now, I'm not saying that's pervasive at every union, but at his it is. And even though it's in Peoria, I'm going to address it myself. So when we speak, not just getting them into the union, but this is where the inclusion part comes in. You let me in the door, but then you treat me like a dog. And of course, I'm not going to stay and take that kind of treatment. So these union sponsored training programs, there needs to be a set of etiquette, if you will, in place to stop this wild, wild west behavior that offends people so that they don't stay to receive the training that they've gone for.
Amen.
All right, I'll get off my soapbox, but nevertheless, it's true.
Yes. Any other council members want to share their comments on the update that Mr. Hurd has provided?
Commissioner Smith, you mentioned council members. That reminds me of something I should say also. We do want to get
council member. Commissioners is what I said. So sorry. Thank you.
I know, but the other step in this is to get our final draft before the council members, and they'll probably be done at maybe one of those committee of the whole meetings. So if anyone has any questions, that we can get those out of the way before we actually get to the vote that evening.
So again, thank you, Mr. Hurt, for staying on top of this and marshaling it through. Really, really appreciate what you have done with this. And we look forward to taking it on to the finish line.
Yeah, I'm
So
looking
thank you.
forward to it too. It's exciting. And we'll probably have a whole lot of stories to tell once it
Yeah.
gets going.
I'm sure. So thank you. Thank you for
All right.
being present tonight to give the update.
Not a problem. Glad to see everybody. Y'all have a
Yeah.
good evening.
You too. Bye-bye. Item 4C is the 2021 Juneteenth update. I am Commissioner Jai. Do you have that update to provide to us?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The group has met. It's a group comprised of myself, Chair Jones, and members of the Bloomington Black History Project. We have met weekly since our last meeting, so we've had coming on 8 meetings so far. The approach is to have a week-long series of lectures with a different theme on the Monday through the Friday. And then on the Saturday to have a roundtable of discussion for all the folks who presented during those 5 days, to have an open discussion. And then we'll have a short break and then come together with a showcase. We've reached out to youth in the community and asked them to provide their artistic impression of Juneteenth, whether it be spoken word, art, poetry, whatever it might be. So there will be a showcase of those efforts with prizes given on the elementary, middle, and high school level. And then there'll be a performance by the BCAI dancers, Change and Advancing Increase dancers. And then we've also partnered with A to Z Catering so that folks can order food by the Sunday before, I believe it is. And then we can all have our meals, and all of this is going to be virtual. So you can sit in front of your screen and eat your Juneteenth related food while you watch all the Juneteenth related activities on the Saturday. So I must give a lot of credit to the members of the Bloomington Normal Black History Project and to Brother Tony Jones, who's done a lot of work on the artwork and so on. And unfortunately, just today, I had to withdraw from that committee. Between personal and professional obligations, I'm not in a position to give it the amount of time and energy that it deserves. However, I will be speaking on one of those days, and I will maintain that commitment.
Thank you for the updates on that, on the Juneteenth activities that will be going on. Very interesting, and change is good to see that it will expand from one day to several days, and the different themes that will be going on. I think during the week, the time is 6 p.m. Everything starts at 6 p.m., I believe.
That's correct.
Yes. So there are plenty of opportunities for everyone to engage with the Juneteenth event. So time to learn more about Juneteenth. Commissioners, did you have any questions on the update that was provided to us? If not, I'd like to thank Commissioner Jai and Commissioner Jones in his absence for the work that they have put into developing this week-long event to this point. And I know Commissioner Jai said that he will be stepping away from being engaged in the event, but will be being a panelist during that week. So thank you, Commissioner Jai, and we look forward to the information that you will be presenting during that week. We will move on to agenda item D, top 5 HRC planning topic discussion. So this is planning the Bloomington Human Relations Awareness Planning for 2021. And Ms. Richards has been kind enough to highlight the items for us. These were the top 5 that the subcommittee met and kind of pulled out of the long list of things that we had accumulated, and felt that these were the ones that rose to the top and needed the most attention immediately. So I will let you all quickly scan through this list. And we can have discussion about them.
I'm impressed with the work that was put into this list. I think it's very comprehensive and much needed. And in the absence of additional discussion, I'd like to move that we adopt these as our action plan moving forward.
Okay. There is a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I would second it. Yeah.
Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we adopt these as our top 5 action items that we need to immediately begin working on to increase awareness of the Bloomington Human Relations Commission for 2021. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Commissioner Conam,
Yes.
Commissioner Ajay,
Aye.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Aye.
Commissioner Smith, aye. I don't think Commissioner Carey is with us anymore. So Ms. Richards, what's our vote?
We have a quorum vote of yes, and so the motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners. We will move on to welcoming city ordinance statement of support. So that statement of support was shared electronically with us, and hopefully everyone read that information, that statement of support, and we will take some time to discuss any questions you may have or thoughts around that statement of support. Thank you, Commissioner Ajay and Ms. Richards, for crafting this statement of support for us.
If I could set some context, the city staff in the person of Ms. Richards provided the document that was based on some language that had been shared earlier. I made some edits, which you see as the red strikeouts in the document. Actually, no, you've accepted them? Okay, good. You've accepted those strikeouts. So what you see on your screen is what the city staff had provided based on my input. They made some revisions. I made some revisions to the revisions, and there they are. Commissioner Jones provided some language, which he termed to be alternate language, and his language basically referenced the Illinois Trust Act and then referenced the Chicago and other ordinances as examples. And my response to that suggestion was that the specific examples that were referenced went much further than the Trust Act alone, and that it was incompatible to reference the Trust Act on one hand, and then these city ordinances as an example of the Trust Act being enacted. So I would strongly urge this group to accept the language that you see on your screen at the moment.
And I will only add that it was a pleasure to work with Commissioner Ajayi on this statement, but I don't want us to forget that we want to discuss also where this statement will be publicized and promoted and how we will go about making this statement open and public to the community.
Well, given that it's an ordinance, right, it would be included in the City of Bloomington's ordinance list, if you will. And then it would be incumbent on us and the media and the city council to make our statement public so folks will know exactly where we stand when it comes to the issue of immigrants among us.
So, quick question, when Commissioner Jai said that city staff, is that someone along with Ms. Richards, or are you speaking of just Ms. Richards? Curiosity.
I know specifically Ms. Richards worked on it.
Okay.
Beyond that, I don't know who else.
Yes,
Okay.
no, that is correct. It was myself.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from Commissioner Conam or responses, thoughts from Commissioner Conam and Commissioner McGinnis?
No additional questions for me.
None.
So I think Commissioner Ajayi may have answered this question. Ms. Richards, you said that we need to take into consideration where this will be publicized and promoted.
Don't you love technology? I couldn't get off of mute. Yes, just wondering or wanting us to make sure that we have, it doesn't have to be a pervasive plan, but just an idea of step by step how we want to go about promoting this. This is our statement of support, and it doesn't necessarily, I mean, it could go a couple places on the website. It could be shared through different channels of community groups, that we have partnered with. So asking them to share or take a look at this. We could also share this with certain immigration groups in the community. So just making sure that we have an idea of how we want to promote this.
Okay. Now, I can't remember how we have shared. We've only developed one in the past, and I do not know how that one was shared, but I'm not saying that this one has to go that same route. I think we need to create a specified plan of how we plan to do these, share these in the future, starting with this one. So,
well, what we should do, or I'm sorry, a suggestion that I have would be to first and foremost, place it on our own human relations landing page. So that
yes,
could be
that's a given. Mhm.
one place. If I'm given permission to do so, I can speak with our current social media, personnel and ask if we could have, if this would somehow be able to be publicized on our City Hall Facebook page and social media, directing people to take a look at the statement. We could certainly have this publicized with WGLT or any of the news outlets. So, but first and foremost, definitely the statement should go on our HRC landing page.
Okay. So we don't have to fully bake this during this meeting. Okay, thank you. If there are no additional thoughts or questions around this statement, I will need a motion in order to move forward with it.
I believe the motion was made by Commissioner Ajayi before he.
Did I miss that?
No,
No?
I didn't
No?
formally make the motion.
Okay.
I'm like, did I miss that?
Let me apologize, Ms. Richards. I didn't get the gist of what you were talking about the publicizing of this, so my apologies.
Not a problem. I'm jumping the gun too, so.
I move for the adoption of this statement of support as the official position of the Human Relations Commission of Wilmington.
Seconded.
It has been properly motioned and second that we adopt this as the official position for the Bloomington Human Relations Commission. Any additional discussion before I call for the vote? Okay. Commissioner McGinnis,
Aye.
Commissioner Conam,
Aye.
Commissioner Ajayi,
Aye.
and Commissioner Smith, aye. Ms. Richards?
The motion passes.
All right, thanks to all the commissioners for moving that along and the discussion. Statement of anti-hate and solidarity with the Asian community. Did we have a specific commissioner to own that item, that agenda item? Or do we have, should I say?
Chair Smith, this was something that was proposed, and in general conversation, commission members seemed to support it, but there had been no official statement drafted and no one to take ownership at this point.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure? Would you like to move this to next month, or are you wanting to have some conversation about that in this meeting?
With respect to time, I would suggest to move it to next month.
And in the interim, I'd suggest that staff research existing statements and perhaps provide some language for us in the interim, so that between now and the next meeting, we could review some language, make our comments, and then be ready to vote come the next meeting.
Commissioner Ajayi, that is on my to-do list, and I've taken note. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move this agenda item to our June meeting. And Ms. Richards will do research in between to craft a document, a statement for us to review and be prepared to discuss and vote on. Thank you, Ms. Richards. We are down to old business, prioritization of HRC awareness plan update. I think we just, that's not a separate action item, is it, Ms. Richards?
It's actually, yeah, this is redundant. Yes. This is
Okay,
redundant.
thank you. So let's go to new business. Agenda item number 6. BHRC and Bloomington Police Department meeting to discuss how our officers are trained in de-escalation, cultural awareness, implicit bias, responding to mental health cases, and use of deadly force policy. Is there a commissioner that wants to lead that discussion?
Yeah, Chair Smith, this was my suggested agenda item. Given the state of, how should I put this? Let me start again. There is a level of distrust that exists between community members and the police force. And in an attempt to bridge that divide, I think it would be helpful to have a discussion with our police department so they can share with us, so we can share with the community exactly how police officers deal with the issues mentioned in this agenda item.
So for clarity, Commissioner Ajayi, are you saying the discussion? Yes, you are saying just between us as a commission and the Bloomington Police Department, correct? And then we will share with the community?
I would like to invite them to one of our meetings to share with us how they address these issues, so that it would be captured on YouTube for people to view at their leisure. And then we can also develop a briefing point, or in conjunction with the BPD, come up with a white paper that says, hey, this is how the BPD does what they're supposed to do. If you see them acting outside of that scope, make sure you raise your hands and let us know. And if you see them acting within the scope, make sure you raise your hands and let us know, so we can congratulate them for doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Commissioner Ajayi, is there a specific time frame? Is there a specific month you would like to put forth that we invite them to one of our meetings?
I'd like to put out the invitation as soon as possible, and whenever they can accommodate us, I think we'd be happy to welcome them to a meeting.
Mhm.
Chair Smith, if you would like, I could take upon the task of making that invitation for the commission and relay different dates of availability back to you all.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Richards. So before you do that, I need to pause to get a vote from the commission. I need a vote that we move forward with this action item. I'm not a vote, a motion, then we move to the vote. Brain dead.
Well,
I can't make the motion, so.
okay, I would make the motion that we move ahead with setting up a meeting with the police department at their convenience as soon as possible.
Thank you, Commissioner McGinnis, for putting that motion forward. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Jai. It has been properly moved and second that we invite the Bloomington Police Department to one of our commission meetings as soon as they are available to attend. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Conam. Calling
Aye.
for the vote. Commissioner McGinnis
Aye.
and Commissioner Ajayi
Aye.
and Commissioner Smith, aye. Ms. Richards,
Chair, the motion passes.
thank you. So we look forward to inviting them to them be in the Bloomington Police Department to attend our commission meeting as soon as possible to discuss the existing level of distrust that exists between the police department and the community and how they can help improve, reduce the distrust and improve the relationship between the two entities. So thank you, commissioners. Item B under 6 is gift in kind sponsorship for listing the Bloomington Human Relations Commission with the Cultural Fest, this 2021 Cultural Fest. There was a communication sent from the Cultural Fest extending an invite for the Bloomington Human Relations Commission to be acknowledged in the upcoming Cultural Fest as a platinum sponsor at no cost to the city of Bloomington. And this was an acknowledgement of the Bloomington Human Relations Commission being such a long-standing sponsor to this event. So out of this, we will get some marketing, free marketing and awareness in the community.
I'd like to move that we be listed as a platinum sponsor in the Cultural Festival at no charge to the city for the, I'm guessing it's 2021 Cultural Festival.
Yes, this will be the 42nd annual Cultural Festival, and it is a virtual festival.
I second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and second that we serve as a platinum sponsor at no cost for the 2021 Cultural Festival. I'm going to call for the vote. Commissioner Conam,
Aye.
Commissioner Ajayi,
Aye.
and Commissioner McGinnis,
Aye.
and Commissioner Smith, aye.
Chair Smith, the motion passes.
Thank you. And the YWCA Dash Against Discrimination sponsorship request, I think that was sent to everyone, Ms. Richards, or was it not? Did all the commissioners receive that information? Okay, so everyone is up to speed on that?
Yes.
Is there a need for any discussion? Do we want to support this? If so, a motion will be needed. The cost is $150 to purchase groceries. And again, out of this will come some marketing opportunities, awareness for us. And another major theme is discrimination. We're advocating for elimination of discrimination.
I make a motion that we support the YWCA with $150 and for their program.
I second it.
So it's been moved and second that the Bloomington Human Relations Commission provide support for the YWCA upcoming event by providing $150 for the cost of groceries, Dash for Discrimination. Any discussion, additional discussion on this? I will call for the vote. Commissioner McGinnis,
Aye.
Commissioner Ajayi,
Aye.
Commissioner Conam,
Aye.
and Commissioner Smith, aye. Ms. Richards,
Chair, the motion passes.
thank you. And the item that I placed on the agenda during the meeting is how does the HRC determine if a commissioner is actually present to be counted, well, actually available to be counted as present during a commission meeting, and as well to be able to have their vote counted.
Now, this was the result of a comment I made being in other voting circumstances.
Yes.
And generally speaking, the rule has been we've got, at least when it comes time to vote, we have to see your face and we have to be able to hear your voice. If you need to be on mute or hide your video during discussion, that's fine. But when it comes time to vote, we need to see your face and hear your voice. That would be my recommendation.
Other commissioners, thoughts, input, discussion?
Chair, if I may,
Yes.
I would just say that perhaps there should be an exemption for those able and impaired who are not able to join by video. That would be my only exception or request.
Yeah.
Additional thoughts and conversation around this?
How soon are we going to get back to meeting together?
Isn't the city opening in June?
Well, the city is hoping to have at least 60% of its workforce returned
Okay.
by then. And so great question, Commissioner McGinnis. And I know we're all anxious to be together. I sure miss the face-to-face contact myself. But we definitely want to be mindful of the city's leadership and guidance on this. And as soon as I find out more, I will share with the commission.
Thank you, Ms. Richards, for responding to that. So back to the topic of what is appropriate for being counted as being present for the commission and having the vote, your vote counted. Commissioner Ajayi recommended that each commissioner have their video on when it is time to vote so that the person can be seen and heard responding to the vote.
I agree with that, but I think the exception has to be the person that's has a disability. And
So we
may,
can put in there, I'm sorry, other than those who have been granted accommodations.
okay. Then that makes a lot of sense to me, yes.
Is that accommodations for video and sound, or are we saying accommodations for video?
Whatever it might be. There may be
Okay.
somebody who's unable to speak and could raise a hand. Maybe,
Okay.
yeah, so, yeah, other, if
Okay,
we leave
with
it blanket,
accommodations.
exactly.
It could be
Okay.
assistant speaking for the person too,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Agree.
So,
There should be some sort of communication that we are able to confirm that that person has voted. Like if they're not on video, that's one thing. But if they are not on audio also, then how are we going to know whether they voted or not? So then they should, they can raise the hand, but I feel that's more technical. So if they are if they are able to raise the hand in. I don't know if they don't have video and audio, then in Zoom, there is a feature to raise the hand. I don't know if that's that raise the hand or there's another raise the hand, like physically raising the hand. But yeah, there should be some sort of visible communication or something that we all can hear or relate to, so that that person has voted. Yeah, and I'm open to any sort of communication as long as it is communicated. That's it. Thank you.
okay. So I think the recommendation that Commissioner Ajayi put forth, he added a bit of information onto it. So Commissioner Ajayi, would you like to restate your recommendation so that we can move forward?
Sure. I'd like to recommend that staff, sorry, Ms. Richards, develop some language indicating that commission members, in order for their votes to be counted, must be visible and must have their vote audibly recognizable, other than in those cases where accommodations have been granted. Language, words to that effect.
Yeah. I second it.
Okay, so it's been moved and second that staff will work to develop language to help determine commissioners' presence for, let me sum this up. Visibility, audible for being counted as being present and voting in our commission meetings.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion on this?
Except for in cases of accommodation.
Yeah.
Except for in cases of approved accommodations. Any additional conversation on that? Okay, calling for the vote. Commissioner Conam.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner McGinnis
Aye.
and Commissioner Ajayi
Aye.
and Commissioner Smith. Aye.
Chair Smith, the motion passes.
Thank you, commissioners. Okay, we have come to the end of our agenda. We've exhausted the list. Thank you. You guys have powered through, and I appreciate that. I will say that our next meeting is scheduled for June 10th, 2021. Let's go around the virtual room. Commissioner McGinnis, anything to share?
Nope,
Thank you. Hope your wife is doing much better.
she is. Thank you.
Commissioner Ajayi,
It is of grave concern to me when we have to miss a meeting and there's no interim meeting in between. We missed a meeting last month, so I'd like to kindly request staff, Ms. Richards, to figure out if there's some way that we can have some policy and procedure that if we have to miss a meeting due to whatever reason, that we shall then put into effect this policy where we're going to have the meeting within 2 weeks. We're going to reach out to commissioners to see if 2 weeks from the date of the prior scheduled meeting we could actually meet, because it's too long. There are too many action items that just sit without being addressed if we have to go 2 months before we meet. Other than that, it was a really great meeting. Thank you all for sticking in there for this lengthy meeting today.
Commissioner Ajayi, we don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that we have to put anything in place because there is already the opportunity for us to call a special meeting. So we definitely have that ability to do so.
What I'm saying, though, is if we miss a meeting, if a meeting is going to be canceled, then we should immediately put into place the call for a special meeting. It should be 2 weeks from that date. And we put the call out to all the members to see, are you available on that date? Do we need to make it a day before, a day after? But so the wheels start turning immediately, things are canceled. Because if we wait too long, then we're going to run into the next meeting.
Okay. So, for example, if the June 10th meeting is canceled for some reason, the ask is that on that date, we immediately work to schedule another meeting, a special meeting, somewhere within 2 weeks, so that it doesn't creep up on the July meeting and for multiple reasons that would create an impact. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
Okay. So commissioners, we do not have to make a change, but we will agree to operate moving forward in this fashion. Commissioners, any thoughts on that?
I agree. No additional thoughts. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
suggestion so that we don't miss any immediate action items.
Commissioner McGinnis?
Yes, I think it makes sense. We need to keep our agenda going and keep moving ahead. And 2 months is just too long.
Thank you. Ms. Richards, can that be noted in the meeting minutes, please?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Okay. I think I got everyone. Did I call for you, Commissioner Conam? Did you have anything to say, to share?
Yeah, I did. And I don't
Okay.
have any additional items. Yep.
Okay. Again, thanks to each of you for hanging in there. It was a long meeting, but I appreciate all of the input and the engagement. Enjoy the balance of your evening, and we'll talk soon.
Good night, all.
Thank
Right.
you.
Good night. What a night.